everybody. Welcome back to the Wild Thoughts Podcast. I'm your co-host, Afi.
And I'm your co-host, Kat.
And we're back with the first episode of season 4.
Oh my god.
We're so excited.
I can't believe we're here.
We made it this far.
Who would have thought?
I know. Consistency. But today's topic is going to be about the importance of setting boundaries. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to talk about this. I was also mentioning, like, I love... Oh, is it...
What just happened?
Oh, no. Is it the... Oh, it leans. Yeah, it does that. When
I wasn't expecting that. It popped.
Yeah, it leans. That's kind of...
Okay, it's fine.
Should I restart?
No.
Okay. But yeah, I love these types of topics. So I'm really into like self-improvement podcasts. Same. It like calms me down and it just makes me feel like I'm becoming a better person.
Yeah. A nice opening for season 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm super excited. So we're gonna jump right into the question of the week.
Yes.
And see what you guys answered.
I'm super excited.
Wee.
Okay. So the question of the week was, do you struggle with setting boundaries between you and others? 81% of people said yes. Yeah. So y'all need this episode.
You need this. I was even telling Kathy, like, what is a boundary?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of people don't know
the like
what a boundary actually is. Like, they've heard of it. They know that there's certain boundaries, like, okay, we shouldn't cross this in a friendship. We shouldn't do this in a relationship. Yeah. But, like, we don't really know. Like,
if someone brought up examples, like, I could bring up examples, but to define it, like, the actual definition, I was like, wait, how do I define what a boundary is? Because it feels very, like...
It's very vague. Yeah, it's very vague. But basically, a boundary is just, like, how you want to be treated by others, how you want people to act around you, and... like what you accept in your relationships and what you don't accept.
Exactly.
And making sure others respect that.
Yeah. It ties into your values as well. So
yeah,
it, like,
for sure.
ties hand in hand with that. That's really interesting. Yeah, I never looked at it as like it also like ties into a lot of like people pleasing too, as I was mentioning before.
Yeah.
Because
so what would your answer be to the question?
Oh, whether
do you struggle with it?
Yes, I struggle with it because I didn't know the definition, so that's a bad sign.
I would say yes too, but like someone replied to our story and said yes and no, and I think I'm on that point because I think with closer relationships I have an easier time doing it, but with more like not strangers, but like acquaintances
to like be like
it's like hard because I feel like I'm not gonna be respectful.
It's almost like not accepted to have very strong boundaries, or you're being rude or not like friendly.
But it's not. You're just like standing your ground. And
you need to normalize like setting strict boundaries with people.
Yeah.
I think I've become better because I think also like with self-care and putting like myself first. Yeah. Now I'm more like, okay, I'm gonna accept, especially with my time.
Yes.
Like, like I'm not gonna waste time on this.
Time is a huge part of setting boundaries.
Exactly. And just like little things. It's my people-pleasing habits. I would let them go. Like, let's say if someone owed me money, but I don't know if that ties into, I wouldn't, like, let's say someone owed me money, I wouldn't remind them and be like, oh, it's fine, like.
I think a boundary in that sense would be like, this time I'm not gonna
let it exactly.
I'm not gonna lend them the money.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
That way.
That actually goes into, like, the financial type thing.
Yeah, because you could be too giving sometimes, and that's what people take advantage of.
Exactly, yeah. So that's interesting. So yeah.
I think also a big part of boundaries that people struggle with is like you can have your own boundaries, but then you expect the other person to have those same boundaries, and it's not like that because you learn your boundaries through your culture, through your family values, and all of that stuff, and it doesn't mean like that's going to be exactly the same from person to person. Yeah. So that's where people kind of like butt heads with.
Exactly. They may not be able to understand like why do you have this or why does this bother you when it doesn't bother me?
Exactly.
And I think it also depends on your personality type, like, you know, your work ethic, like just how you're made, basically.
Everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So in that case too, I guess in order to be like conscious of other people's boundaries, you have to like ask them what their boundaries are, because I think that's the best way to know. Or you can kind of like with common sense and social cues figure it out, but sometimes it's not as obvious.
But I think you yourself also have to be more vocal about it, and that's what a lot of people,
about your own
myself,
boundaries,
struggle with. You have to actually say like, hey, this is not what I want you to do, you know, like stuff like, but it's hard.
It's hard because I think some people, because it's not as normalized, their response is not the best. Like they'll be gaslighting you and shit.
I was telling Afi an example of what happened the other day where like someone was trying to tell me something, but they kept hitting me. And like I don't like being touched already, so they kept going like, oh, okay, listen to this, listen. Oh, and then they did this, and like hitting my arm continuously, and I didn't say anything, even though I was like uncomfortable. I'm like, stop touching me.
Exactly, because it's almost like, oh, especially if you're in someone else's space too.
Exactly,
you're like, oh, am I being disrespectful?
I don't want to seem rude to be like, hey, you gotta stop touching me, but like you need to do that. It's
important for you to set that, or else they won't know, and then they're gonna keep doing it, and then it'll lead to like resentment, or your relationships like kind of downfalling. Yeah,
and we're gonna get into that a little later. We're like, but that was a good like starting point to kind of what we're gonna discuss.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you want to dive into the types of boundaries.
I can mention the types. So there are actually a few different types. So the first one is physical, which is like the example Kathy just said, like personal space. Exactly. Personal space is a huge boundary for me. I don't like when people get in my face or get too close to me to talk, but I never say anything because I'm like, they're gonna think I'm like weird, because like they're gonna think I'm vocalized rude. Often.
Like some people would get like this close to me. I'm like, please. I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable. Get away.
At work, there are a lot of customers when they're trying to show me a shoe. And especially during the pandemic, they get close, I back away. That's like me trying to tell them. Sometimes I want to be like, sir, can you please like keep your distance? Sometimes we do say, but the only reason why it's more acceptable is because of COVID. So it's like normal to be apart. So that's like our excuse. But there's personal space, like privacy, like of your own space, body. So like how, like people touching you. So you should be able to say no, and that like that's your boundary. So like some examples is also like looking through others people's like personal things could be a part of physical, because it's like their emails or their phone, like even like in relationships if you're looking into people's phones like you're stepping over. I mean, that's your relationship, but it is like something you might be crossing. Say,
if you have the instinct, something's going on.
Like
that's a different discussion.
Exactly. It's like you shouldn't invade someone's boundary like that, but I mean, if you have to,
if you think it's happening.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other type would be sexual. So like it could just like intimacy things. So anything you're not comfortable with,
giving consent.
Yeah, exactly. And then intellectual is just like your thoughts and beliefs. If someone like disagrees with your thoughts but does it in a disrespectful manner, that could be like crossing your boundary or invading your boundary. And then there's also like emotional, so having to do with your feelings, like you said, like gaslighting, disregarding your feelings, being like, oh no, or telling people like what they feel even though they don't know how you actually feel. So like some examples would be like not knowing how to separate your feelings from your partner's, and like allowing their mood to dictate like your happiness and sadness, all of that. That's like codependency and like being dependent on other people. Sacrificing your own plans in order to like please others. That's a big like invasion of what should we do? Not taking responsibility for yourself and blaming other people about the decisions you're making. And then financial. So financial is like anything with like spending, saving, money, all of that. Like we mentioned, like I think I don't know if this was we had mentioned.
We just mentioned.
I was like, was it off camera or was
we're a little off today?
We're just starting after like a while. So but anything with like if you have a budget and you don't want to go over it, or
it's like, let's say a friend is like pressuring you like, oh come on, like we're just going out to eat,
it's one time,
but it's not in your budget.
Exactly.
And not
that's like an invasion of your boundary. Or let's say you're lending someone money that I think it was, I forgot the example, but I think it was like lending money to like, you know how to save but they don't, so
and you're continuously like, paying for them.
Yeah, exactly. And they're kind of taking advantage of that.
So they kind of like, boundaries are in every aspect of your life, like and you need to set them, or else like it's gonna cause tension in all your relationships, including your relationship with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually thinking like, because there's so much to consider, I was like, maybe I should start writing them down too, because like I don't actually know what, like I know them in my head when they happen in situations, but at least if you have them down, maybe it'll be easier for you to set them when you're with people and be like, oh, this is what I accept and this is what I don't accept.
Yeah, that's true.
So that might be a good way, because before I kind of just looked at it as like an idea, like boundaries are just like intangible thing that we just set and they're like played around with. And
and they're always like, if you're not enforcing them, they're very like loose. You're like, okay, I'll let it slide this time, but then you're continuously letting it slide and letting it happen, and the behavior's just being repeated over and over. Exactly. And that again is gonna cause tension.
Exactly. And it'll cause like harm to you. Yeah. And one thing that I read also, like, it basically when you create boundaries, it saves your emotional energy, because that stuff can drain you once they're like invaded and disobeyed, like just it's 100%. For your own good.
And we're going to give examples of kind of all these a little later, but now we're going to kind of touch upon how you identify what your boundaries are. So it's kind of like the explanation is easy, but when you actually think about it, it's a little bit more difficult. So like, obviously you have to look into like what your basic values and rights are and what your needs are and all of that. But it could be a little hard, especially if you're a person that is very like empathetic. Is that the word?
Yeah, I think understanding, empathetic.
You like to take on other people's emotions, and you like to cater to their emotions because you don't want to see them sad or mad or all that stuff. So it's very hard to respect your own boundaries if you're like that. Yeah. And also, you have to follow your instinct, and like, if you're with someone and you're getting uncomfortable, like I said, my other example, someone was hitting me and I'm like, I'm uncomfortable with people touching, but I know they're not. And I was like, just letting it slide. So I'm like, that's just how they are. Like, no.
Or you were sending indirect cues, but that person
I was like kind of like, I wasn't looking at that person. I was kind of like just like I was like disregarding kind of what they were saying, even though they were like telling me something, just because I was like, you need to stop touching me.
You were just focused on that.
But I didn't vocalize it, which is not good, because then they're gonna think it's like whatever,
or
I'm just like, or I'm just tired, so they're not like
they'll just assume things, whereas if you directly say it, it'll be like clear.
And also just looking into how you feel in certain situations, and like that can kind of like trigger in your mind, like, okay, maybe that's one of my boundaries.
Like, when I feel uncomfortable because of this, then that's the problem.
So just like, it's easy to say, but you have to like knowingly think about it.
Like, what makes, that's what I was saying. It's like, I feel like I have to write them down now, because
you're like, oh, that made me uncomfortable. Boundary.
Because in the moment, let's say you feel uncomfortable, it's hard to say it on the spot, whereas if I know from before what makes me feel uncomfortable, and like you identify it, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna make a list, Kathy, after this. Everyone make a list with us.
Oh my gosh,
they're actually so important. I think I underestimated them. I was like, boundaries? No, it's fine. Okay, so the benefits of setting boundaries, there are a lot of like really good benefits. So it allows you to listen properly to the other person, and people to listen to yourself. Not to yourself. I can't talk. Okay. It allows you to listen to others and others to listen to you.
Active listening.
Active listening, and just being respectful of each other's boundaries. Yes. You're practicing like respect for your boundaries and your values, and just being able to say no and really like put your foot down.
Yeah. It also helps you build confidence, because you're being more strict with what you need. Yeah. And also self-esteem, like all of that.
And you're confident in what you like believe in, and you don't let it like, you're not letting your values, your boundaries being pushed around. You know what they are. And I think that leads to like just being more confident also. And this also stops like conflict and like resentment, because like if you're feeling comfortable but you're not vocalizing it, then the person will just keep doing it, and that'll just get you angry towards that person, you know?
Yeah, you're gonna have that like underlying
feeling,
anger, or like frustration with them.
Like passive aggressiveness. Exactly. We don't want that. So really it's just like beneficial for yourself, but also like, all your other relationships.
For sure. Oh, because like if you're very vocal about what you don't like and what you do like people to do, and let's say
they do it,
let's give the example of like, you don't want to spend money, but your friend is being very pushy, and like, then I think they know that you don't like that boundary to be violated. Yeah. So they know that after you're not going to talk to them for a few days. You're not gonna hang out with them. So like, they're gonna know the consequence of that, and they're not gonna repeat the behavior.
Okay. I understand. Okay, interesting. Okay. And then also, like I mentioned, just like conserving your emotional energy, because that could be draining when you're uncomfortable, obviously, or when you're doing something you don't want to do, or someone's disrespecting you. That's draining your energy. And honestly, like better overall self-esteem, like we mentioned, just confidence. Like you're just more confident.
You're standing your ground.
Exactly, and you know what you can tolerate and what you can't. So that's really important.
Yeah. So now we're going to kind of dive into more examples. So we'll start with what an unhealthy... Oh my God, I can't speak.
It's okay, I'm worse. Don't worry.
What an unhealthy boundary is. So, for example, if you start sharing too much as soon as you meet someone new, or like the other end where like someone's sharing too much with you, I've had that experience and it makes me so uncomfortable because I'm like, I don't know you. Why are you telling me all
when
of
it's
this?
someone you don't know?
Yeah, because then you're put into a situation, especially if they're like emotionally dumping on you. I think that's another example. You're put into a situation where you're forced to help them, even though like you don't know them,
like,
and you don't know
their problems.
Yeah, exactly. And like they're putting all of their
responsibilities,
all of their like frustration and anger on you when like, you're not in the situation. So then you're like Afi said, you're going to be emotionally drained, and then you won't be able to help yourself.
Exactly, because they're projecting it onto you, and that's relieving them, but it's not relieving
and then
you.
you're put under the burden of carrying their emotions,
and then you're gonna rant to somebody else.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a vicious cycle. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. Like I said, if you're a very empathetic person, you're gonna feel like when other people are unhappy, you're going to take that on and be like, oh, I need to fix that.
Yeah.
When it's not the case. Like, they have to fix that. Their happiness should not be dependent on what you're doing.
Exactly. Like, you feel some sort of guilt, but at the end of the day, like, you can be supportive, but like we said, there's a line. Exactly. Don't cross that line.
You can't fix their happiness, because then they're going to always turn to you for that happiness.
That is so true.
And it's going to cause a toxic, unhealthy relationship.
And you're not going to get a break.
Yeah, exactly. And then emotional dumping.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need that.
Yeah. The next one is the inability to say no, because you think that they're never going to come to you again. They're going to reject you when you're trying to hang out with them, like stuff like that. So that's a big one. That's like the number one boundary that you have to set, is like making sure when you say no, people understand that it's no.
Exactly. And you don't justify yourself. Like,
exactly.
The whole point of that is that you have the right to say no. When you go into like basic rights, you don't need to say why. You don't need to put like a whole like excuse together.
And we spoke about this in our people pleasing episode, where like the importance of the word no is like the number one reason for setting a boundary. Exactly.
But I think sometimes people are scared too, because it's like, or even for like, let's say emotional dumping, maybe you're the person that's like, because it could be a friend too, it could be someone that's close to you that's doing it, and you also maybe just don't want to necessarily participate in that. But I feel like if you say no once, or you like let them know that this is your boundary, then they won't come to you again. Then you feel bad.
That's happened before with some of my other relationships, where like as soon as I say like I can't listen to this anymore because it's not causing me like it's causing harm to me just because you're dumping everything. And then they don't talk to you after. So there's a very thin line, and I think it's also the way you go about telling the person.
Exactly. And you have to ask consent too, though. So I think in some moments maybe you don't want to, or you just can't handle it, but some other times if they ask you, maybe you'll be, depending on what it is, maybe the answer will be yes. So I feel like
it's also like they have to fix their behavior in order for you to be able to communicate with them.
Because sometimes the thing is, the reason why it could also be draining is because they don't actually take what you're telling them. So then you're just speaking for
nothing. Which happens a lot.
Because they just kind of want an ear, but they don't necessarily want to listen to what you're saying. So that's when when it's not proactive, like the person's not being proactive with what information you're giving them, that's when it becomes frustrating, because you're like, I'm just
and that's why one of the benefits of setting clear boundaries is active listening, because then you'll actually listen to each other, you'll understand each other, and you won't like resent each other for just like dumping each other's problems over and over.
So in that case, what would you say? Would you be like, oh, can you just ask me permission next time?
No, I think you have to be like, listen, I understand that you're going through this and I'm here for you, but
take into consideration
take into consideration how this is also affecting me. And if all our conversations are revolving around you just venting to me, we're not really progressing our relationship.
So like Maybe you just come
I wish I said that what the last time that happened.
Look at us. We're so vocal here, but now you're ready.
Yeah.
You're ready. You have
Next time that happens, because I did not react that way last time.
It's hard though.
It is.
Especially with people you're not like 100%.
Yeah.
Because it's hard both ways, but like, especially when it's on the spot. That's why it's like preparing in advance.
For sure. All right. So another unhealthy boundary is you don't feel like yourself. And it says like you have a weak sense of your own identity. So like you kind of lose yourself in other people.
Exactly. Because you didn't set like what you say yes or no. So you're like,
just kind of like with this friend, okay, yeah, I'm like this. With that friend, I'm like this. With this
so
relationship,
like, who are
I'm like
you?
that. Yeah.
You're just the people pleaser.
Yeah, exactly. You're just trying to please everyone and just you lose yourself in that.
Sometimes I question, I'm like, is my whole personality just people pleasing?
You know, they make a joke about Libras that they don't have a personality because they just take on everything.
Oh my god, bro! I used to think I was like versatile. I'm like, I'm
versatile.
I just blend with everybody.
Yeah.
Then like my whole personality.
It's just an air sign thing. I think it's just because like we're very social. We want to be accepted by others. Yeah. So we just like we let things slide, which is not good.
Yeah, exactly. And it could also be person to person. Maybe just like no one really taught us necessarily. Like they should teach us in school, y'all. They do, but in like indirect ways, not like, oh, this is boundaries. They're just like, okay, say no, which is a boundary in its own, but like, you know, just having a set
guidelines
exactly would have been nice, but
you gotta create your own guidelines, honey.
We're learning now.
Yeah,
so
you gotta look
not
within.
too late.
Okay, and the last like unhealthy boundary is like what stems from it. You feel like disempowered and you're not like you're letting other people make decisions for you, dictate your actions, take control of your life basically, just because like you don't know how to stand your ground and say what you want.
Exactly. Yeah, I used to do that a lot, like asking other people for advice because like I say, I'm indecisive, which is fine, but to a certain extent, like you know what you want sometimes, and like it's also draining to keep asking people because then you're waiting. And
it's also like you're trying to seek validation from people.
It's
exactly. All our episodes tied into one.
Exactly. You need to see that confidence in yourself and just know what's what and what you want and what you don't. Yeah. But yeah, those were unhealthy boundaries examples. But now we're gonna go through some of like some examples of boundaries you should be setting. Kathy, you were done, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was like, oh, I just went in. I was like, so the main one, I think we mentioned this a lot too, is like making sure that like people understand that when you say no, it's actually no, and not you feeling like you have to justify yourself or anything. And then the empathy as well, like it's good to show empathy, but then like people can kind of take advantage of that.
100%.
So really like prioritize saying no and like sticking to that and not feeling guilt.
Yeah. The next two kind of
intertwine.
Yeah, intertwine basically, like Afi was saying beforehand, where you have to dictate your own feelings and like your feelings can't be based off what your partner's feeling, what your friend is feeling, what you think the other person should be feeling either.
Don't take it on.
So you can't take on what they're feeling, and your feelings should not be dictated by what they're feeling.
Exactly. They should be separate. Like, let's say they're like, if your friend is going through something and like they said they're emotionally dumping, like it's okay to like, you know, try to be supportive and understand what they're going through, but then you shouldn't feel upset and then like overthink all day about that and not like continue on, you know, because we're all going through things and like it's not going to help anyone if you're also just like doing that. But then like healthy physical boundaries. So some examples are like, oh, like if you're really tired and you want to take a break, you should be able to say that and not feel like compare yourself to others or anything.
I'd be like I'm too tired, I want to take a break tonight, I don't want to come to the
exactly. A lot with like making plans or like, and sometimes you make plans, and this happens to me a lot. I'll make plans in advance, but then like the day of sometimes I just am not feeling it, and then I'm like, what's the point of going to some, you know, if I'm not gonna like be there because I'm gonna. I
have a bone to pick with people that like they're in a bad mood and they force themselves to show up anyways, and then again they're basically like just the way they're acting at the hangout or something. It dictates what everyone else feels after.
Exactly.
Which that shouldn't happen, but it's just like, if you're feeling shitty, if you're feeling shitty and you show up and you're not really talking, you're just like in a mood, like, then I'm gonna start feeling shitty because I'm like, why did you show up?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then you're gonna be
and
like,
I get
oh, this
angry.
person,
which I shouldn't, because it shouldn't be dictating what you feel, but it's still at the same time. But it's the
energy too, because you're all in the same space, and then it's like weird if you just exclude that one person. So, and you're also, a lot of times when that happens, you're trying to cheer them up and be like, and
they're not having it, and at that point it's like, well, you should have respected your own boundary and not shown up.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. But then also, like, I thought of you, Kathy, with this one. Like, let's say you don't like hugging, or someone touching you, and you're like, oh, I prefer just to like shake your hand or something. Like, that's like something. I thought of you because you don't like hugging. I feel like I forced you to hug me. I'm sorry.
No, I feel like I've been more vocal about the hugging thing.
Yes.
Where like sometimes, especially now because we're in COVID, like people are like, oh, I want to give you a hug, and I'm like, actually I don't like hugging, like now, because now like, you're not trying to hug me, so now at a distance I'm like, actually I'm not a big hugger. I don't really like hugs,
and you shouldn't feel bad for that. That's good. It maybe the person is just hugging you out of like social norms too. That too. So they're relieved and you're like, I don't think anyone will cry because you don't want to give them a hug. You'll be okay. Just some other examples, like, you know, if you're hungry and you need to go get food, or like some people also, like, I was thinking about this, but like, let's say you're like a young person and you have diabetes, but other people don't know, like, and you need to go get get food because your blood sugar, like, I don't know, is low, but I don't know if that kind of goes into boundaries, I guess. But then also, like, being touched too, that happens a lot with like just harassment in general, or in the workplace or anywhere, like you vocalizing like, no, you don't want to be touched. And obviously sometimes people invade your boundaries, but it's good to vocalize it also. And then if that doesn't work, there are other steps that need to be taken.
Then you escalate.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, the room one is a big one for me. Like,
she got angry. Her voice.
Like, knock before you come into the room, or don't go into the room without asking. Sometimes my siblings borrow things without asking, and I'm like,
that would piss me off.
My brother borrowed my bike, and it got stolen. And it's like a $300 bike. So
I'd be like, pay for it.
But I lost his Louis V wallet a long time ago, so it was not by accident, though, obviously. But anyways, this is some dishing.
She's venting.
But I already mentioned, like, my basically, like, the knocking on the door. So in my household, like, in the traditional Bengali culture, like, honestly, boundaries and privacy is not really something that's like kept up with. They don't really like follow that. They don't.
But that's why what we were saying at the beginning, where like your culture dictates your boundaries also.
Yes, exactly. It influences. If you're like a bit loosey goosey,
loosey goosey. Oh my god,
the quote of the loosey goosey. Don't be loosey goosey with her.
I've never heard someone say loosey goosey. That's like a 40-year-old white woman saying.
I feel like I don't know where that came out of. So it's more like cultural things, and then, like, you know, I try to explain it to my mom, like, Mom, can you? She just doesn't understand why it makes me upset but it's like, why does it make me upset when people just barge into my room?
Well, it makes me upset because my father does this to me. He starts knocking now, but he'll knock and just come in before I say anything. But a lot of the times I'm in meetings because we're working from home, or like I'm doing something and I don't want to be bothered. So I think that's what gets disruption, because it's repeated after, even though you're not doing anything that's right, because it's a repeated behavior and you're already angry about it.
Yeah, true. Could be that. Yeah, exactly. But anyways, that's just that. It's just that's something she doesn't necessarily understand. But so basically, like, some examples of like boundaries, emotional boundaries being violated are just like we mentioned, like kind of dismissing and like criticizing feelings. It's just like dust flying everywhere. Oh my god. Your feelings being criticized or dismissed. Basically, I love using the word gaslighting.
Because that's what it is.
Gaslighting. I feel like I'm gaslighted all the time. Asking questions that are maybe not appropriate. So like if you're asking maybe like uncomfortable questions for someone, you know that they're not going to feel comfortable. Like we said, like going through someone's personal information behind their back, asking someone to justify why they're I feel like like if you're asking to help, like if you're in therapy or something, that's different.
But it's also like if you're being pushy about it, be like, oh, why aren't you coming? Why don't you want to do this? Then
exactly. Then it's different.
They don't owe you an explanation.
Yeah, because they're just like kind of trying to change your mind almost. And then assuming how other people feel just because like you think you know, but you don't actually know how they're feeling. Maybe you've gone through something similar, but the way you take it and that other person takes it can be completely different. Telling people how they feel or how they should feel, that's a big one too. No, don't do that.
That just gets me angry.
Who are you to tell me how I'm feeling? Like, no.
Or it's like, let's say if you're angry about something and someone's like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's like, well, it is for me.
You're like, now I'm angrier.
Exactly.
Like, thanks for that.
Exactly. It could be a big deal for me. Like, don't compare me to someone else. Like, we all have different lives. And it is what it is. Okay. And then emotional dumping obviously is a big one. Just like without someone's permission, you know. And like if you're doing it a lot and in an inappropriate manner, like just it's not being effective.
Yeah. I think honestly, because we've been talking about emotional dumping a lot, I think I've been very good with like limiting the amount of venting people do to me. Yeah. Because I don't respond. I stop responding. Yeah. Because I'm like, okay.
Because then it's like,
I'm like, I said what I had to say once. You're going to keep talking to me about it. I have nothing more to say.
Yeah. And so then don't ever bring it up.
Ever. Yeah. I think if you don't want to like say what we said before, to be like explicitly say like, you can't do this. Yeah. Just do what I do. And I'll respond once. I'll help once. If they don't take my advice, I don't respond again.
Yeah. Because then you're just wasting your time.
Yeah. And it's like why would I be giving you advice if you're not going to take it? And you're just going to keep venting to me about a repeated behavior that you're angry about.
You're violating my freaking boundary.
Exactly.
So no. What I was just... Yeah, me too. The thing is, I feel like also... Because I feel bad sometimes, like someone vented to me, even though they didn't start the conversation off by venting the next time, I'll ask, like, how did it go? And then I'm like, but now I don't anymore. Yeah. I used to because I would feel bad, you know, like, it's like asking, how are you? And if you know someone went through something, you're kind of like, but then you're like, oh, no.
I never ask anymore. I'm like, anymore. If they want to bring it up, sure, fine.
But, sharing inappropriate emotional information with your children. Ooh, setting boundaries between parent and child. That's a big one, too. Well, like an example that I gave now. But, there's different types of, like,
but there's also, like, some parents that they're very open, which is fine. But sometimes they're too open and they could share information that you're like, okay, I didn't need to know this.
It may affect your child in certain ways, and like it's important to teach boundaries and children.
There's like I've never experienced this. Obviously, I've seen it in movies, but parents that are like that they emotionally dump on their children.
Oh yeah, and they're like the adults.
Exactly, almost, they take the parent role. They take the burden. Like that is
No. That's maybe that happens a lot to like younger parents too, because they feel like their child's like their friend, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't
just I've seen it in movies.
Movies are freaking Bibles.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to like how to create the boundaries. Yes. Basically, you need to be assertive with your beliefs and what your boundaries are, and even if like that's not a boundary for the other person, you need to be like, hey. I don't like this. Don't do this.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to like. You have to be vocal about it too, which I know. Again, we keep saying it's very difficult to do that. Yeah. But also, like Afi was saying, you can use like little social cues to like demonstrate that you're like uncomfortable with the situation. Yeah. For example, like Afi said before, if someone's like touching you repeatedly, you can back away. You can like like people. Hopefully they'll catch on. Yeah. But people should catch on. Sometimes they don't. Yeah. And that's when you need to be vocal about it. Exactly. But so just being assertive and like standing your ground. We keep saying this again, learn to say no and not give an explanation.
No is the best word. I read somewhere where it said no is a complete sentence. So you don't need to say anything after.
Period. No. That's it. Also stop people pleasing, like we said, and like be assertive with what you feel. Yeah. And kind of like you have to be yourself and put yourself first in every situation, even though like it's not being selfish to like help yourself.
Exactly. Well, like at the end of the day, you're gonna look out for yourself, obviously, and what's beneficial to you. So like even if you think it is selfish, it's not a bad thing. I think people like associate being selfish like really negatively. Yeah. But it
depends what you're doing too.
Yeah. I mean, like you're not being selfish your whole life either. Yeah. You care about others, but you have to take care of yourself also. And it's like find yourself and like who you truly are, because people pleasing is not who you are. Yeah. Like we said, it's not a personality trait.
100%. And if you're really having like a hard time setting boundaries and respecting your own boundaries, then you can get some support from other people. So like people you're close to, you can tell them your boundaries and like they can kind of identify it too, be like, okay, I won't do this, or like or if they see you interacting with another person and you're not setting that boundary, maybe they can step in, they can tell you about it, like
cover for
like you know, they can support you that way. Or also like look for professional help, go to a therapist and like talk to them about it, because if it's very extreme and you're just like angry all the time and like anxiety all the time, like it's gonna affect you mentally, and that's not what you want.
Exactly.
You can't live life that way.
Exactly. I agree 100%. And if ever like you didn't like, someone did something you didn't like and you weren't able to mention it on the spot, and afterwards you feel like it's appropriate, like let's say it was a close friend, I think it's all right to mention after, even after it happened. And that might even be good, because you won't be in the moment of like feeling frustrated or angry that someone's
because you might also say it's all like, if you say it in a way that's gonna anger the other person, they're not gonna respect it. They're gonna be like defensive. They're gonna they're just gonna be like, oh, she's just angry, that's why she said it. Like, no.
And sometimes there are gonna be people that you're not gonna feel comfortable setting that boundary, because you know they're gonna respond negatively. But I still think it's important to do, and if they do, like they gaslight you or whatever, no, bye.
Distance yourself,
or just like try to explain it, I guess, the best that you can.
And the most respectful way. That's the key. You can't like just lash out.
Everyone has boundaries, so honestly everyone should be understanding of this. You could literally be like, okay, but you don't like when I do this, so it's the same thing as that. So this was kind of mentioned before, but how to recognize others' boundaries and respect theirs. It's kind of like common sense. Also, like you can try and look for cues, but sometimes the best way is just to like directly ask, because you don't always explicitly know, and like you can't assume necessarily. But you can, but it doesn't have to be like, it could be subtle, right? It could be like, let's say like you're messaging someone late at night for an information. You could be like, oh, whenever you get a chance, when you're available, would you mind just, so you're respecting their time frame. It's not like, can you give me this right now?
I need it now. And I need it from you.
So it's like the way that you say it, you're getting to know their boundaries without them explicitly having to directly say it, you know? I think I'm good. You see, that's the thing. I'm not good at setting my own, but I feel like
you're good at respecting
other people, because I'm more considerate, but like...
but that's because you're empathetic.
I guess the guilt. I don't know. That's some other issue. But that's pretty much just how to get to know. And you can do it subtly, like we mentioned.
For sure. So now we're gonna move on to like, why do we allow people to violate our boundaries? And we've said it. Fear of rejection, or like the person leaving, not really talking to you anymore, and that's a big thing that could happen. Like it's a risk.
It is.
But if they're truly your friend and truly like close to you, and you consider them a part of your life, they shouldn't do that.
Exactly.
And if they do, then good riddance.
Honestly, they can't. It's your mental health. If they can't respect it, then.
Exactly. Another fear is like you don't like confrontation. That's a big thing. That's why like it might be difficult for you to be vocal about it, but again, use social cues, use body language to kind of dictate that you're uncomfortable and don't like what that person's doing. Guilt, like I said, if you're empathetic, you're gonna feel guilty for not helping them. But you shouldn't feel guilty, because you shouldn't be dictating other people's feelings.
Exactly. You can give them resources, like, oh, hey, there's this, but like they can also try and do that themselves. But you can help in different ways where it won't maybe drain your energy.
100%. Another reason is like, maybe you're not taught healthy boundaries, and like if your family's very open and very like touchy, or like very like says what's on their mind, like there's a lot of stuff that like the way you're brought up can kind of dictate how you react with other people,
like respect and culture.
But
and
again, it's not like it's not an excuse, because you should be learning behavior.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Because even if you have a certain culture and like it's accepted, you still may feel uncomfortable. Just because it's like in the culture, it doesn't mean, so everyone has, like, even our parents who are in this culture, they have boundaries too. They're just trying to be like the polite, but really that's people pleasing. Damn, I said it. How many times did I say that word in this episode?
Because it just ties in. If you guys want to listen to that episode, go ahead. We did a past episode on it. I'm not sure what number it is, but...
Oh, yeah, it's true. Our whole people pleasing episode.
And then kind of a last reason is like, maybe we don't feel safe in the situation, so we don't want to confront the person or like say that we feel uncomfortable, just for fear of them reacting badly. So like, that can happen a lot with like harassment issues and stuff like that. Or also if you're like, you're not like, it's not a close friend, but it's someone you care about, but you know that they're gonna react badly, so you just let it slide. But you like, there's, like we said, there's ways that you can say things for them to not react badly and more have it in an understanding way.
Yeah. Also, this made me think, like, the safety concerns. Like, let's say you're, like, a woman alone, like, you went to a restaurant or a bar and there's these men, like, maybe harassing you or pushing to, like, I don't know, touching you or stuff. And you don't want to, you're scared to say no because you have nobody else to help you. Or what if they have, like, what is it, a weapon or something, or like they become violent. So I think that comes into play too. But yeah, but I guess that's more with like a lot of well, no, it could be with non-strangers, but it could happen.
I think it's easier for, like, again, it's easier to let it slide with strangers, because you're like, oh, I'll never see them again. Strangers, it's much easier, but like acquaintances, when you're trying to build a relationship, that's when it gets a little sticky. But like, it's better to say it at the beginning than let it continue, and then you're just again, you're resenting them.
Because I feel like because once I feel like you're more comfortable sometimes setting boundaries with people you've known longer, because you're like, oh, they know me now, so it's like appropriate to say. And at the beginning, the relationship is maybe like fragile and new, but like, no, it's just as fine to say it then too.
Yeah.
And now the final tip, but just how to be consistent with boundary setting and really like keep that behavior going. Just be consistent with them. Make sure you're vocalizing it consistently to whoever, no matter who they are.
Yeah. And you have to be consistent because people are not going to remember. Let's face that.
And when it becomes like repetitive, people tend to remember then, and like
they might like act that way, and then they'll catch on and be like, oh wait, I forgot you don't like that.
Exactly. Keep them simple, I guess. So what do we mean by that? Your boundaries simple, just like
don't overcomplicate it in your head,
and don't need to justify them, I guess, either. Like, just no is
be
no,
like, I don't like that, I don't like when people act that way, and that's it.
You don't need to go dig deep and be like, I don't like this because this happened to me when I was like. So I guess that's when it, like, kind of just keep it at that, and you don't owe anyone an explanation. Stay calm. Like, even if like someone is invading your boundary, try not to like react to it, but just explain, like, not explain, but state what your boundaries are.
Be firm, but not aggressive.
Exactly. And then like be responsible for how you react to things and your emotional feelings, and don't blame it on other people. And I feel like once you set your boundaries like strictly, you can't. Well, once you've set them, they should be respectful of it. So you're not going to be blaming anyone. But like, if you're not setting your boundaries and someone is like disregarding them, then it's kind of your fault. You didn't vocalize it. Exactly. So you need to be very like vocal about that, and don't blame other people. Yeah, like we said, sometimes boundaries could be a bit loose depending on like who they are. Like, yes, you can be flexible, but like, don't agree to something that you're completely not comfortable. Maybe like compromise if you're not super comfortable, and don't do like, go with your gut. Like, just don't do anything that you're gonna feel 100% like uncomfortable with, and just take it like step by step.
Make sure you're communicating with the person to like so that you're both comfortable.
And like we said, just don't agree to do things that you're not comfortable with. And wow, we gave a lot of information.
That was a lot in a short amount of time, so hopefully you guys could digest that. Maybe like listen to this in parts,
because there's like a lot of steps.
But
I think it's helpful because like I said, I never looked at it as like something like an actual concept. It was just kind of there, and it ties into so many things that it gets like confusing. But no,
and good. And just remember, like, obviously this is not going to happen overnight, so it's like it has to be something that's learned for yourself and also for other people. So take it one day at a time. As soon as you see a behavior that you don't like, try to be vocal about it. Try to like make it known that you're uncomfortable, and just like slowly build your boundary. Because if you like, yes, you can be like, okay, from now on, like, I'm not gonna let this happen, but like, people are not gonna realize it, and they're not gonna remember that you don't like it.
So step by step, and just as you do it, and your boundaries could also change. Like, maybe you didn't have this boundary before, but maybe something happened that made you have this. So just I think writing them down too helps, because sometimes we don't even ourselves remember them just until they happen. So
make a list.
That was the episode. So we're super excited, and we can't wait for all the episodes, season 4. So stay tuned. It's gonna be super fun.
It's gonna go into the new year, so that's fun. We're gonna have a cute little like
winter
new year winter,
and then it'll be our 1 year after that, because it'll be like spring again. That's when we started. April.
We made it.
Wow. We killed it.
Yeah, so I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's listening, because we wouldn't be here if people didn't listen.
Exactly.
So thank you for that, and make sure that you're following us on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us individually at CatLPX.
Affy the Shrink.
Everything will be linked down below, so make sure you check it out. And hope you have a good one, and hope you like this episode.